أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome everyone. Jazakumullah khairan for joining us today. So a very brief intro for the setup, the whole setup of the retreat. So inshallah, this retreat we have been planning this with a group of students from Penn and Drexel, and also some researchers also, alhamdulillah.
From Drexel as well. Oh, sorry, the Princeton as well. We have one person.
Yeah, one person from Princeton. We could count for that because and we have a lot of people coming from Princeton. Jazakumullah khairan. So the topic that we chose was based on the feedback from the group. So we said that we have been going through things as Muslim community for the past 4 or 5 months now, especially with what's been going on in Gaza. So we said that there are 3 major feelings that we are going through nowadays. One is the injustice, another one is fear, and the third one is hopelessness. So how to cope with that as a believer? What's your stand towards these 3 feelings that we are facing nowadays more than ever? So inshallah, this would be the major topics we'll be covering throughout the day. In this first session, we start with injustice. The second one is fear, the second one? Second one is fear. And the third one would be hopelessness. Since the room is crowded here, I'll beg pardon of the online participants. We will not be able to take comments from online people. And for the people here, as time progresses, depending on how the presentation goes, we can take questions, but they need to be a little short so that we can deliver what we are intending to deliver on time. And this being said, let's start, inshallah.
If online participants can write on chat, I can maybe control from here.
Might be, it's going to be a little challenging to follow up with the chat. So, yes.
So starting with the first session, which is on injustice, and I think that is probably the most, I guess, relevant question on everyone's mind with everything that's happening in Gaza. And even I think in a more personal perspective, everyone has his own journey and we've been through a lot. So I think the first question that comes to my mind is essentially like, we have this expectation of, or at least even our atheist friends or non-Muslim friends ask us this question. We've been through, everyone's heard these questions, and we've been through on those atheist websites, like, how do you reconcile the apparent injustices in the world with the expectation of a merciful God? Or like, the question you would ask is, why would a merciful God allow all of this? Like, children are being bombed in Gaza, or even like, for example, this is some personal examples. One that is very close to my heart is someone who's very close to my heart lost his faith because of this. And the example was, he would go on walks in the evening sometimes, and then just taking a walk in the park, he saw a baby kitten that was crushed by a car, and the brains were like spread across the road. And then he looked at the kitten and he was like, if there was a merciful God, this would not have happened. So like, I cannot reconcile this. And that is why he just left the fold of Islam. So this is a very relevant question that shakes the faith of any believer. So
I guess this is one example of type of an injustice we observe. It is more so, it looks like we have an expectation from Creator to be acting, and we'll talk about that inshallah, but just, or at least merciful and just towards that kitten. Because the notion of injustice in there is, we have the expectation that the kitten deserves living because it's a lively, cute creature. And this life is taken away from that kitten early. So how dare a just one is doing that? This maybe could be considered as a injustice towards the creation, like a kitten. So God is making injustice towards a live being, a live creation. But that's not the only type. So it's the one, let's say, we see in Gaza is at a global scale, an issue for human injustices. But more so it's happening, and probably everybody in this room has experienced it at some scale, like within the family, your brother, your sister, your mom, like they're just behaving in a way to you that you say, well, this is unjust, it's unfair. So why is this happening? How am I going to deal with that? And it looks like many of the times the oppressor, especially in the larger scales, are just living their life comfortably. But the one that's oppressed, probably living a poor life and dying. It looks like it's okay to make some injustice and you're saved, you're good to go. And as such things accumulate, it's okay that initially people say, no, 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 I believe in God and whatnot. But as it keeps accumulating, in the example that you gave, once you see this kitten in there with the brain spilled all over the place, this just puts the, what do they say, the last needle or whatever that breaks.
Final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, okay, final nail on the coffin. So then this is when people start losing faith. But it's not only because of that, it's an accumulation and lack of an answer to that problem up until that point. So that's why it needs to be addressed in my personal life. How do I deal with human injustices, or apparently with a question mark, God mistreating or being unfair? I mean, this generally the notion, of course, we need to get into that, but God mistreating the living beings, let it be the animals or the planet or whatever you want, or even sometimes the universe itself is being treated unjust, like things are dying. If you take it in the larger scale, things are dying. Like Isa, I remember when I first came to US, Isa was with diapers. Now Isa is as grown up as his father. So this has been 14 years, Isa, mashallah. But that means Isa is dying step by step. I mean, for now, he's growing up. I mean, this is the good news, he's growing up, but actually, this is a one-way road that we are going from one place to another. And it looks like we don't have a choice to step back. I was talking to a friend a few days ago, and he was saying that he started taking pills for keeping him young. So I said, well, he said such and such developed it. I Googled the name of the guy. He's an old guy at his 80s. I said, he's old. Like, it didn't help him. So, but this going towards that thing, although I don't like it, like, I don't want to die, yet I am being pushed towards here. It's nice up until maybe 25, 30, you are enjoying that you are getting like growing. But after a certain point, even the death itself becomes such a huge source of discomfort or injustice.
And another thing, another question that comes to mind is that you also see, like, if you do believe in God, you see God giving you all these things like parents and, you know, like a family, and you're happy with them. But then all of a sudden, it feels like he's taking them away. And it feels like your life is being uprooted, and it's, you know, very shocking, very shaking. And it begs the question, like, why give me all this in the first place? You know, like, it seems that the creator then has to be cruel.
Yeah, that sort of questions will chime in. And then many of the atheist websites, you will hear these. And it's not for like ill intention. There might be some people with ill intention asking those questions, but sometimes it's coming out of a genuine question. People are truly bothered by that. And what we were taught probably in Sunday school or in our household as a God is not providing a fulfilling answer to those questions. So this is why, inshallah, today we will try to see what we can do with that.
So just to summarize what Brother Yusuf just said, so we experience, for the most part, two, that Brother Yusuf talked about, kinds of injustices. One, we see humans being unjust towards other humans, and then God being unjust towards his creation, like the kin, for example. But then there's also a third kind of injustice that we haven't mentioned so far. It's like God being unjust towards human, we feel apparently. Like we feel that we have this right over God. For example, I'm a middle child and I have an elder brother, and I've had my fair share of beatings my whole life. So, and I would always think, like, why would God, you know, make him the bigger brother and give him all these muscles, and I'm this skinny middle child and, you know, I'm getting beaten up all the time. So it's like, why give him that, and where are my muscles? You know, it's like, so why would God, like, and it's also like, I think once you start growing up and your horizons, right, you start seeing like greater injustices or like a disparity in how things or resources are distributed. You know, you see such disparity between the rich and the poor. Like the poor have this apparently this really hard, difficult task, and the rich are living, enjoying their lives. And you're like, how is a merciful God doing this between, like, you know, creating such disparity among his creation? So you also see this element of injustice from God to humans. So just to sum it up, there's like three types of injustice that we're trying to tackle here, which is one, God towards his creation, such as, you know, the plants, animals, then God towards humans, and then the human injustice.
So this being the case, now I guess we'll need to find some answers towards that goal. What's going on in here? But let's start with, because at the core of this question is our perception of justice. But what is justice? What do we expect when we say justice? In the first place, where did we get this expectation? Because the problem starts with, I have an expectation, and this expectation is not met. Like, for example, Zahra has an expectation that his brother was not beating him, despite being strong. So, or we have an expectation that this lively, beautiful, nice kitten should keep living lively, nice, beautiful kitten, shouldn't die. Or for myself, I shouldn't get old. I should always be as strong as I had been in 25 and fresh, bright, sharp. So I have an expectation. Where did we set this expectation comes as a question. Because when the expectation is not fulfilled, this is where our understanding of injustice kicks in, right? So this gives us a good clue about where the problem is starting in our perception. Justice is something that is established for us as order. We do observe order in this existence, and Quran gives many examples. I just pulled up one of them in here, and this is from Surah Abasa. So, فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ إِلَىٰ طَعَامِهِ. So, Quran is attracting my attention to the food that I ate. We just had a breakfast, right? So, let me consider his food. أَنَّا صَوَبْنَا الْمَاءَ صَبًّا ثُمَّ شَقَقْنَا الْأَرْضَ شَقًّا. So, how we pour water in showers, then split the earth in clefts. فَأَنبَتْنَا فِيهَا حَبًّا وَعِنَبًا وَقَضْبًا وَزَيْتُونًا وَنَخْلًا, and caused the grain to grow therein, and grapes and green fodder. وَزَيْتُونًا وَنَخْلًا وَحَدَائِقَ غُلْبًا وَفَاكِهَةً وَأَبًّا, and olive trees and palm trees, and grapes and green fodder, and olive trees and palm trees, garden closes of thick foliage, and fruits and grasses. This last verse is very interesting. مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِأَنْعَامِكُمْ. Provision for you and for your cattle. Like what has been described in the previous verses is really what we observe in life. We have food, but generally we take it for granted. But that food is coming to us with a well-established order. Rain is being sent down from earth, from somewhere where you wouldn't expect life to come out, like a dead earth. Fresh food is coming out. But what is the purpose behind that? So that you and your animals are going to eat from that. What does this show? There must be someone who is caring, watching over me, knowing me, loving me, that providing me with food. Because, I mean, this is a common example that we keep giving, but in your birthday, if the door knocks and somebody comes in and hands over an iPhone to you, like you wouldn't go and hug the guy because like a FedEx carrier is incapable of gifting you with an iPhone. You know that because FedEx carrier doesn't know you, doesn't love you, like is certainly doesn't love you to give you a random guy a gift of $1,000. So looking at what's happening, the outcome shows that somebody who knows and cares about me sent it to me. And this verse, these set of verses, and there are many more verses like that in Quran, showing us stage by stage the order in the existence, and then points to the purpose. This is all done as for food for you. Can rain care about me? Can earth care about me? Any of these in between, like all the stage in here. Can any of them really love me, know me, care about me? None of them. Therefore, we say there must be someone who is loving, knowing, caring about me, that I am provided with that. This is how we are establishing our expectations. So these are the things we take for granted most of the time. That's why the verse started by saying, فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ إِلَىٰ طَعَامِهِ. Let man consider his food. We do not consider our food. We take it for granted, and then we complain when things are going out of expectation. So we need to see the big picture now. This is how it is with the kids, right? So you feed the kid, give them everything, and then they point their finger in the supermarket to a candy. And knowing that it's bad for them, you say, no, 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 I'm not going to buy it to you. How unjust, what sort of a mom you are. Like, you don't like me, you hate me. Like, all these sorts of things start kicking in. The child established this expectation over time, how he or she was provided again and again. Then something against this expectation happens. This is what we call as injustice. So our initial question then would become, how did you establish this expectation of a just creator?
And if I think about like my experience, I do see that I have a stomach and I feel hungry and I am in need of food. And then I look at this world around me that, you know, is my living place. And I see that there are fruits and so many like foods that are there for my provision. So even in my experience as a human, I am seeing perfect order.
Yeah.
And just to like further on the fact of how we get this expectation, I find this that I am repulsed by whenever I see injustice within me. I find these feelings within me. And then when I observe, these feelings aren't my own, because if they were my own, I could just flip a switch and turn them off. But I do feel very repulsed by whenever I see an injustice. So, and then I feel attracted, or I have this sense of justice within me. That's a manifestation of a fitra, the way we've been created, is how we've established this, you know, we have this international code of justice, we have our Supreme Court, because in in whatever our capacity, we do try to establish justice. So this feeling has been given to us. So expectation comes to me from my like for justice and my dislike for injustice, that whenever I do observe things that do bother me, that whoever gave me these feelings should also address this, or like, I feel a contradiction. That is why this bothers me. It's like, you know, like, you gave me these feelings, but at the same time, you're creating things that make me uncomfortable. So where is that coming from?
So, but that's an important observation. So let me highlight it once more. We being disturbed by an injustice, like somebody coming and pulling Isa's hair, and Isa is saying, whoa, why did you do that? He's like getting angry with the person. So there's this notion of feeling anger towards injustice also instilled in Isa. So could Isa be proud of himself, for example, saying that, look, I am a justice warrior. Look at Salih. Where's Salih? Look at Salih. He doesn't fight for justice, but Isa does. So could Isa, for example, in this case, say that I am better than Salih because I consider, or I am more giving value to justice more than Salih? So we can ask the same question for any of the feelings that we have. Can I be proud of being a hardworking person? Can I be proud of being a punctual person and whatnot? Or check for yourself. Where did you get this feeling from? Was it yours from the first place, or it is being provided to you? Somebody is giving you that feeling. Like being disturbed by justice is also being given to me. Then the question becomes, as you were asking, somebody gave me this feeling of repulsion towards injustice, yet creating injustices before me. What is the message from here? What am I supposed to do with that? Because it could have been that even if he was to allow injustices happen, it would be an easier fix to say that, okay, I'm not bothered by injustice. Then I wouldn't question that. I would be perfectly fine with injustices in this case. So me being provided with this tough situation is begging a lot of questions. I need to answer those. So it looks like, as now we are wrapping it up, another verse I am pulling here from Surah Al-Hijr. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا عِندَنَا خَزَائِنُهُ وَمَا نُنَزِّلُهُ إِلَّا بِقَدَرٍ مَعْلُومٍ. There's nothing except that its treasuries are with us, and we do not send it down except in a known measure. Like the way we established our expectation of justice is coming from this perfectly ordered measure that we observe in the big picture. We will get to where things are coming out of order. But we do observe an order and a measure everywhere. If you would like to pay attention, just look at your hands. you see that it's within a measure, for a purposeful measure, it is done. So this is justice. In one sense, this is justice, because there are two types of justice. One is, let's say, if I hire Adam for painting my walls, there are two types of justice. One is, he did a $1,000 job, I immediately pay him $1,000. This is justice. So giving the person their due. This is one type of justice. Let's call it positive justice. And then there could be a negative justice, which is, when painting the walls, Adam messed up the whole house. Now I need to punish him for that. So punishment is half of justice. Giving the person their due is one half of the justice. And for the first half of the justice, we already established this as we observe order. Like my hand, being the functional hand that it is, testifies that there is a just one who is putting all these boundaries according to a purpose. Just looking at your hand, you would say that whomever is doing this really didn't let, let's say, the nails to grow or grow over time and indefinitely making it unfunctional. No, it's perfectly functional, purposeful. It shows that whomever is creating this is a just one. And this verse is attracting this to our attention, saying that everything in this existence is being done with a measure. So first half is there. But how about the second half? Punishment of the injustices. Because this is something that we are struggling a lot. Like, has anybody watched documentaries here? Documentaries, you know them, right? What do they zoom in? Like, initially they show you a nice, happy rabbit just eating carrots and whatnot. And then a fox comes or an eagle comes and then catches the rabbit and just kills it very brutally. And then after feeling full, flies away. And then what's the conclusion that's being given to you? Only the fittest survives. Strongest, if you have might, you have the right. If you are strong, the world is for you. If you are weak, you better hide. This being the punishment aspect does not exist, is being the message that's being given to us, right? What do we do with that? No idea? Okay, we are stuck.
And then just to stress upon the punishment aspect being missing. So like when I observe like situations around me, for a lot of times, I see that, like when we talked about the first part of justice, I see things being created with measure. You know, if you contemplate over the universe or anything, for example, like I am created in need of oxygen, and then all of a sudden there are these trees that are producing oxygen and sustaining me. And then I have hunger, and then basically rain comes down and the trees bear fruit and that feeds me. So the first part of like the due measure of what I'm being given, what I want is being given. So I see half of justice. The first part, as we said, positive justice being fulfilled. But at the same time, and that further builds the expectation that I want to see, you know, this complete. So it's like when I've divided myself into half, like first half is hunger, the second half is getting the fruit. So the same goes for justice. The first half is like seeing the positive justice. And then when I look at the world, for example, of retribution, I see a lot of times, for example, you see the oppressor getting away with things. And then that also puts a lot of like, adds to my disturbance. So like even further creates contradiction. But then when I look to myself, so for example, we've been, for example, like when I do a sort of injustice, like for example, I hide my brother's chocolate for someone, you know, and then I feel like a small portion of retribution is given to me in form of guilt. It's like, you know, and then this takes my attention to the verse in the Quran where it says like, I will show you signs on the horizon and within yourself. So I see a sign of that retribution given to me. So it's like, you know, as soon as you do something, the guilt is immediately given. It's not something that has been delayed. It's going to happen eventually, but it's immediately given to me. So that begs the question, like, I do see half of that, but where's the rest of it? Where's that going to come into the picture?
So yes, as much as we conclude with the big justice here, and we like the way I look at it is as if we have this huge picture of like beautiful artwork somewhere. Okay, I mean, it's not that beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, let's assume it's a beautiful piece of artwork. And imagine, like for the sake of argument, okay. So by analyzing every single corner of this artwork, we come to a conclusion that the artist is knowing what it is doing. So every aspect of it, we say, oh, he or she knows how to choose colors, how to paint boundaries, a very strong sense of art, very strong sense of color harmony and whatnot. Everything is there. And then on some part of, like at a corner of this picture, I do see a hole, a punch made here, or very apparently not as harmonious colors are chosen in this part of the picture. What would you say? Would you say that, well, the artist sucks because I'm just focusing on this part, this small part of the picture, and then say that, well, the artist doesn't know anything? Or do I say that, well, considering the rest of the picture, I do see that artist is a very talented person. So what was the intention of the artist by putting this portion as such? Is the artist intending to show me the beauty by putting a contrast in the rest of the picture by putting it in here? Or is the artist saying that, well, actually this, I mean, of course, it's not a perfect example. Artist is also updating the picture moment by moment and fixing this in real time and showing that, look, I am more talented than you can imagine. Something which is apparently unordered, I am going to be fixing it within order in your eyes. I can also take it this way, because the bigger picture tells me that justice is there. Then I should reinterpret what that small apparent injustice means. Yeah.
So just to further add to that is, so when I look at the entire picture and I conclude based on that, that this small hole must be within measure. So that when I see an order or like a, for example, a message being conveyed in the entire painting, it's like just it's following a certain color scheme. And then I see this hole, then I have to beg the question that this must be within order. And for me to deny the order or to reach the conclusion that because there is this hole, none of this should exist. I feel like for some reason I have to deny my own intellect at that point. Like, because the conclusion that I reached earlier should all be wrong. I have to deny, because it's just a small hole, I have to deny all the colors, the scheme, the message that I see everywhere. So it's like then the picture doesn't make sense, because if I start questioning the order and everything else because of this hole, instead of trying to read this hole in light of the entire order that I see.
Yeah.
So then I think the question becomes is, how do we read the apparent contradictions or the apparent injustices that we see? Like, what is the correct way of reading this in the light of everything that we observe?
Yeah. And also, if you think about this disorderliness in the existence, pay attention that the disorderliness also within an order. Like, for example, diseases. Diseases are going out of order, apparently. Like, you have a healthy eye, and then your eye starts feeling bad and whatnot. But when you go to the doctor, what does doctor say? Look at your eye and say, oh, this is such and such disease. They give a name to that disorderliness. There is an order within that disorder. Like, if all the diseases were random, would there be a doctor for that? There won't be, right? There is an order within those disorderliness that doctors can attempt fixing them. Otherwise, if they were not generalizable, how long is medical education right now? 3+3+, well, it goes, right? So you study 10 years or so just to become a resident in eye. If eye diseases were random, you would study for the rest of your life for every new patient, it's a new case. It's a totally new thing, and trial and error. You need to learn how to fix it. If there was no error, if there was no order, even within disorderliness, there's order in the existence. This in the existence makes perfect sense. But when it comes to human, this is where we are struggling, though. Like, a person wronging me, then I do not see the order within there. It feels like, well, the guy is just acting or misbehaving and whatnot. Because it makes sense. Now I can understand when it comes to, let's say, a disease that human has. Because now I do see that creator is interfering in there and still, in an orderly fashion, creating an apparent disorder. But it's not a disorder, really. Mm-hmm. It's an order in a different way. So I can now seek purpose in there. But how about Isa coming and hitting my head? It's a disorderly behavior, Isa. Don't do that. So what do I do out of that? This is where I say akhirah has to come into the picture. Because if for a human being, Isa hitting my head, dying in his peaceful bed, me being super angry with him for the rest of my life and dying with the grudge in me, this would be injustice. This needs to be established. And this order I see everywhere. Order I see in a healthy cat or healthy human being, and order I see in a diseased person, like order within that disorder, says that it looks like there's only a small hole in that whole picture, which is human problems, human injustices. How do I deal with that? So there has to be the one who did the whole picture with perfect justice, as if left this small apparent injustice in the picture as a hint to me that I have more for you. After you die, it's not the end. There will be a supreme court where I'm going to take the justice. And as Zahra was pointing to, even he puts evidences of that in this life as the guilt that you feel. Because if that guilt was yours, it was easy, right? Shut it off and don't feel the guilt. Can you shut off your guilt? You need to put a lot of effort really to shut off your feeling of guilt. Like get a lot of drugs and just become so bad of a person so that this guilt is going to be turned off. Which means that guilt is not by myself. Somebody else is putting that torture, if you like, because I did something wrong and I am being punished by it even when I am here. The owner, my owner, is saying that I'm watching over you. I won't let you go. You say, I'm not letting you go. You mistreated that person, and I give you this pain right now. It's a sign that more is coming. So watch out, step back, repent. Otherwise, you're going to be seeing more. So akhirah is really answering one of major questions about justice, saying that by bringing evidence from the order and justice I observe in this existence, it says that eventual justice is going to be satisfied. But of course, this brings the problem of once you bring akhirah into the picture, then the meaning of life changes. Then I need to ask the question, what is this life for then in the first place? Because it looks like I'm going to another life. Even you can ask the question of, why did we start it there in the first place? So it looks like there is something special going on with this life. And correctly identifying what is the purpose of this life is going to help us. Since I pulled up this verse, let me read this and then we'll pass to the next one. There are tons of verses in Quran again about resurrection and akhirah and justice, ultimate justice. This is from the end of Surah Yasin. وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقَهُ قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ. And he makes comparisons for us, gives us some example, or challenges us, if you like, and forgets his own creation and says, who will give life to bones and decomposed ones? Like it become like an ash. And now the Creator is giving evidence. Akhirah is not just, oh, it would be nice if akhirah happens. Quran gives us evidences for akhirah. It says, قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ خَلْقٍ عَلِيمٌ. Say, the one who created in the first place will create it again. Like as if giving us a metaphor saying that I have a book written by some famous author, a special book specific for me. And my book drops into water. And then I say, how are they going to rewrite my book? And the author says, well, I am the one who wrote it in the first place. It's easier for me to write it for a second time. Like you should be more amazed by how it was written in the first place. If it is written in the first place and you experienced it, are you really questioning how it's going to be done for a second time? So a second creation is like, I wouldn't even be having any question like, is he unable to? No, it's out of picture. So this is why Quran is bringing us evidence, meaning that you should be sure. I mean, there's no room even to be reluctant to say that, well, because generally how it happens is many people have died, nobody came back. So it looks, this is the main impression to say that it's a one-way street. We die and we are done, nothing, non-existence. But Quran is saying that no, and it's not simply wishful thinking, bringing us an argument which is going to convince our minds and hearts at the same time, saying that the one who created you in the first place is definitely capable of creating you for a second time or after your death. Then what's the purpose?
So before going to purpose, I just want to talk about this one more. So when I see all of my, just to like approach what Quran is saying, just to confirm it from a different lens, is when I see all of my needs being fulfilled, like very small needs, from my need of oxygen to my need of food to my need of shelter, I need to sleep, the sun goes down, like everything I see, the whole creation is being catered to my existence. Like, it's like as if I could feel like that I am as the fruit of the universe. Everything here is designed in a way to support my, so everything that I want, all my tiniest wishes, from like when I wish to blink, I just think and it happens, you know, all my things are being fulfilled. But then I also have this, a very strong desire for like, I need to see all these justices happen. Like, you know, like for example, something that is very close to my heart is, you know, it really bothers me, and we studied this very recently, is what happened with Sayyidina Hussein, like why did he have to be martyred and why did Yazid have to win? So that question is one of my, like, where is the justice there? Why did, or like many other examples we can think of, whatever example you want to think of, is, you know, why does the oppressor win for the most part? You know, so I do want to see that just happen. So the question naturally follows, the one who is creating all of this and fulfilling all my tiny desires, is it rational to conclude that the strongest desire that he gives me will be left unfulfilled? And when the Quran comes and says, no, there will be a supreme tribunal, that desire will also be fulfilled.
And just to put a few more words about how our needs are being satisfied, you are given eyes and you're provided with light. Like you're given lungs, you're in need of oxygen, you're being provided oxygen. These are 24/7 things that keep happening. Have you guys ever get into a shower and your ear, just some water gets in, how disturbing it is? So you are given ears and you are able to hear. This is a sustenance. Need is there, sustenance is being provided. And occasionally the creator is cutting this so that you realize that, oh, I was being provided. My need was being provided 24/7. Now, yes, this extreme desire of human for justice, extreme desire for human to live forever. Like these are, if you like, so huge needs of human, are they going to be just left unfulfilled? So the rest of my desires being provided 24/7 testifies that this very dear and very central desire of me should be fulfilled. What is the obstacle before that? Death itself. So then death is not an end, it's just a transition. If death is a transition, then what's the purpose of this life then, right? This becomes a central question then. And Quran, the first revelation actually starts by answering this very central question. Why am I here? Like when Prophet ﷺ was in the cave, living in this Meccan society, like the Jahiliyyah society, at the age of ignorance, being bothered by his society, the answer comes as not, oh, Muhammad, go and try to prevent the killing of the babies, or Muhammad, go and become a social justice warrior and whatever. The answer that was given to him, because there's a substantial problem, and the answer needs to be substantial. The answer was, read in the name of your Lord who creates. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. خلق الإنسان من علق. Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. اقرأ بربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Read, and your Lord is the most bounteous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. This really frames life in a very interesting way. What comes to mind when I say you read?
So when you hear the words that Quran comes, Revelation comes and says, "Iqra bismi rabbika allazi khalaq," read in the name of your Lord who created. It's what, at least the initial impression is that I am already reading, and the thing that I am reading is not satisfying me. It's what I see fills me up with contradictions. If I read with the lens of philosophy and naturalism, and I see the strongest or like the survival of the fittest, this answer, I don't find it satisfactory. Like I see everything else is happening, and I see like I'm a very frail creature, but this entire universe has been designed to fulfill my needs. But then again, when I read all the holes that I said, going back to that example, when I read the whole with the lens of that I'm being fed, like it's growing up in this society, the lens of science and nationalism and philosophy is says like, it's the strongest may survive. Like this answer does not make sense to me, and there is a contradiction. And the Quran says that contradiction comes is because you're not reading. You are reading, but from a very different lens, which is not the right lens. The right lens, Quran says, is read in the name of your Lord who creates. Now that I feel is like it changes, or at least for the lack of a better word, it's like it's a revolutionary way of looking at things. Like this whole problem now I feel is going to be answered is when you. Now, when I see, first I was looking like, it's like, it's the survival of the fittest and it's just chaos or like a blind force of nature doing something. But now I'm like, wait, I have to read in the name of the Lord who creates. Now, what is the Lord or who creates and how is this being created? And I see everything being created with a lot of mercy, with compassion, with purpose, with infinite wisdom. And then I was like, so now when I question this, I need to question the purpose behind this. So the intuitive answer that first comes to me is like, everything that I see within me is completely with measure. Everything that I see within the universe is in complete measure. But this initial thing that I was reading with a different lens did not answer that question. So now when I change my lens and read in the name of my Lord who creates, now that we're going to start finding those answers.
And I think like not only are these verses describing like the purpose of life, but they're also describing your relationship with your Lord. So you gave the example of the parent who is preventing their child from eating candy, right? And at the moment, yes, the child is going to be mad. But is that something really that they're going to hold against their parents in the future, that you didn't let me eat this candy? No, because they understand that the purpose of the parent is not to be the best friend, is not to give you everything you want. It is to protect you and to be a parent. And this is telling you what your Lord is doing in your life. He is teaching you. He is being a teacher in your life. And he's teaching you what you don't know, which we can also confirm from the Quran coming and telling us all these things that we don't know.
Yeah, and for those who doesn't know, Dua is, her profession is what? Being a student, I guess. Mm-hmm. So what do you do as a student? Like, because it looks like read is being mentioned in here, mm-hmm. and you do read in the school. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about when somebody comes to you, and you were expecting to go and become a social justice warrior, and your creator says, read. Mm-hmm. So what does this put you in? In what position are you being put by such a verse? In the position of what you do the best, student.
Yeah.
So you are being suggested to become a student. This is what we were looking for, right? What is the point of this life? As if, like, this is how it happens, right? In the department, you're angry with something and whatnot. And you go to the department head, and department head says, read. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what I'm expecting. Your duty being in here is to read. Mm-hmm. What that means is, I did observe some apparent injustices. Creator's answer is read. Mm-hmm. In the name of your Lord. Mm-hmm. Like the babies, the baby girls were being buried alive in Meccan society. It's something that stirs your blood, right? Your creator comes back and says, you read in the name of your Lord. This is framing this life up to grave, because that's what we are trying to figure out, right? Why didn't we start it in the afterlife then? My creator starts by answering, you are a student. This is why you are here. The purpose of you being here is you are supposed to learn. How do I learn? As Zara was saying, you will need to read, but read in a special way. You cannot simply go and read it randomly. You will read it in a way that, however, the author of that book, that event, what did they mean by that? You remember our example with the picture that is a hole over here? What did the painter mean by leaving this portion empty? So that is the question I need to ask. But to get a proper answer, now the guidance comes in, Quran comes in, and says, you will read, but not any random reading. You will read it, not saying that, standing behind the picture and say, well, I think this is what it looks like. No. Try to understand what the author means or what the painter means by that. Look at it try to understand by looking at the rest of the picture. That's why there's an emphasis on رَبِّكَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ. So Lord, Rabb means somebody who takes care of things, maintainer. And khalaq, you are talking about someone who maintains, but you already see how he kept maintaining. Khalaq, like creation is taking place in front of your eyes. Look at the rest of the picture, learn the pattern, how he is acting, how he is creating, how he is maintaining, and then read this event with that lens. Quran is teaching us how to read the existence. Existence becomes a school then.
Are you accepting questions?
Very brief
From
questions.
you.
Jazakumullah khair. So you had earlier mentioned about reading our emotions, right, as being given by our creator, so our sense of injustice as being something that doesn't belong to us, but is also, we find within ourselves from our source of existence. Now, when you initially talk about this idea of reading, and we're talking about the topic of injustice, reading gives me a sense of passivity, like it seems like a very passive state of being. Yet when I see injustice, as you said, like my blood gets stirred. So how do I reconcile the sense of what is seemingly passivity with, events of injustice that seem to require action?
Very beautiful.
Somebody hits you, just gonna take it.
Yep, exactly. And inshallah, we will get to that. Quran gives us an example of this, and we will cover this just as a sneak peek. It's going to be the story of Musa alayhi salam with Khidr, because that wise person is killing a boy, opening up a hole in a ship, and then fixing a wall, and tells Musa, don't ask me any question. So it's very hard, and Musa, we know Musa alayhi salam was a tough person, and he's really trying to constrain himself. And inshallah, once we get there, if we don't answer your question, remind us again. Okay, inshallah. So then this life is an education. It looks like this is the point. And then death becomes graduation. And then after life becomes your professional life, if you like. This is how Quran is framing this existence. And then we talked about injustice, human injustices being handled in the afterlife. Now, how do I deal with things when I am here? This framework is going to help us a lot. Like life being a school and education is going to help us a lot. Because most of you here are students, right? Or at least had a good amount of education so far. Have you had assignments where it's very challenging? Very hard assignments, right? How do you feel towards these assignments? Do you go ahead and say that, well, the professor doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. He's just trying to torture us to satisfy his ego and whatnot. Like these are, if we don't get the purpose behind it, these are being the immediate reactions that we have. But there would be some students who are careful with their studies. What would they do? They would say, well, let me see, because I'm just taking the course. It's the beginning of the term. And this happens more in freshmen. Freshmen, since they graduated high school, they are at the pinnacle of knowledge, right? So when they step into college and the first few courses come and they start criticizing the professor, like computer science, you don't know what you're talking. Like the professor has been in this domain for 30 years and saying that you need to start learning from this topic. But this new high school graduate says, no, it doesn't make any sense. It sucks. I don't like this class and whatnot, right? But there are a few students who are more, I would say, realizing their limits. They would say, well, let me see. Like my capacity right now is not able to appreciate why did we start with this course? It sounds very irrelevant for now. But as I keep learning, I realize, oh, actually, yes. The professor who have been in the domain for the 30 years with his, if you like, eagle eyes and like the bird's eye view, put those topics in there, here and there, in this order, so that I establish the basis strong enough so that later on I can put things on top of them. For a freshman, it's hard to realize this immediately. But as you start passing courses and trusting the professor in this case, because of the professor was wise, how do you know? In our practical life, of course, we know it by the reputation of the professor. You go to, ratemyprofessor.com. So you go there and learn about the professor and whatnot, then you trust the professor. But in our real life, the creator is acting, has been acting on my existence, on my body since my childhood, and nothing got messed up so far. Like I like the way I was being created every day with breathing air and everything. So it looks like the one who is operating here knows what he is doing. So I'm going to give, if you like, benefit of doubt, or not even that, but trust in him if I don't immediately see the purpose. But the main point is there is a curriculum. This is the important point. There is a curriculum in that education. And that curriculum is hand carved for every individual. Like in our schools, we have only one curriculum. And if you want to opt into CS program, everybody takes that. I mean, of course, you can do electives and whatnot, but there are a lot of limitations. This many electives, these are the must courses and whatnot. And if you take a course, you have to be as successful as anybody else. The same set of questions are put before everyone. But this is not how we live the life. Like Zara has, there are 3 siblings. One has to be an older brother, one has to be the middle guy, one has to be the younger, right? So this is how it is. And youngest is being spoiled a lot. Oldest is the strongest, so he beats up. Like, this is how it is. Every single one of them, although in the same household, are going to have a hand-carved different curriculum for themselves. But that portion, are we clear now with life being an education? Number one. Number two, the one who does the education is a just one, just in the meaning of keeps everything within an order and measure. Nothing is random. No course is put in there to fill the credit load. Everything is put there in purpose. 3, it is hand-carved for you. It's not mass education as we are right now doing. It is a hand-carved education for every individual. Now that I have this, now the purpose of life is that. What will go from here? Humans' education in here, how does it happen? Right? What's your struggle with that, Dua?
Well, have you ever heard people saying after like a very hard time, like I wouldn't give it up because I learned so much through it. And I was also thinking of this when you were talking about like hard assignments. Like, yes, in the moment you are struggling, but then after those assignments, you will have learned like a completely new topic, something that you weren't familiar with. So definitely I am seeing in this life that, like hardship is being a source of learning for me. And I also feel like when I look at hardship, for example, I broke my foot a while ago, and it made me realize, how merciful it was of God to give me that foot in the first place. Because now I'm struggling. It's a completely new way of living life. And I'm noticing, that I took my life for granted before. I took my body for granted before. So it is being a source of learning for me. And in my personal capacity, like I wouldn't exchange those sufferings and those hardships because they taught me a lot.
Yeah. And this is from Surah Balad. And I just took portion of it. The whole surah is very beautiful. Quran is really very beautifully talking about me and talking every individual here, individually talking about all of us. So in Surah Al-Balad, let's start reading from verse number 4. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Indeed, we created man into toil and hardship. The Creator says, I know our curriculum is heavy, but I have, in a sense, I have faith in you. I know that you will be successful in that. This is how the surah is starting, right? أَيَحْسَبُ أَلَّا يَقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ أَحَدٍ. Does he think that no one can overpower him? Another way to read the same verse, do you think that nobody is going to have any measure over you? Like, do you really think that this curriculum was randomly set? Because sometimes, like in the classroom setup, there are being certain students sitting at the back. These are that type of students. They would have this attitude that professor doesn't know anything. Quran is saying that you really think that I don't know anything? I created you. I created your questions. I created your brain. Like the criticism that you make, I created that brain, as if the Creator is saying, do you really think that I'm unaware of you? يقول أهلكت مالا لبدا يحسب أن لم يره أحد. He says, I have squandered enormous wealth. Does he believe that no one has seen him? So we start boasting about, well, I put a lot of effort. I did this, I did that, right? Well, the Creator says, I have been watching over you. Every single step you take, you give too much credit to yourself. I have been there the whole time with you. I exactly know every single step that you're taking. Because think about it. How much or what is your share in doing very simple acts that you do? I mean, generally, our super simple example for that is raising your hand. How do you raise your hand? You just wish to or will to raise your hand, but you don't know which muscles are moving, what neurons are firing, no idea whatsoever how it's happening, right? So as if somebody says, tell me your wish, I'm going to fulfill it. The rest is being taken care of. This is how the existence is happening, right? So the Creator says, he says, oh, I squandered a lot of wealth. Do you think that I was not there? I was not watching over you? Now, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ عَيْنَيْنِ. After this introduction, this is the part that I would like to emphasize. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ عَيْنَيْنِ. Did we not grant him 2 eyes? وَلِسَانًا وَشَفَتَيْنِ. And a tongue and 2 lips. وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. And shown him the 2 highways. This is about our curriculum. Like, student came into class and the professor is saying that, folks, I gave you those laptops, I gave you this textbook, and now let me explain why we are in this class, right? So he's saying that I have given you 2 eyes, those 2 cameras I put there. I give you a tongue and lips, like the tool to talk. I gave you that too. And I showed you 2 ways. The Creator is saying that I gave you choice. That is your share. You are given choice. All the rest, I gave it to you. But choice, this is where your learning is going to take place with. I prepared you the questions. Like, take it this way. We are now coming very briefly, we will touch the topic of Qadr, so be careful. Wake up if you start sleeping, okay? The Creator is saying that, like as in an exam, teacher teaches you everything throughout the term, all the slides, questions, office hours, teacher does everything, okay? And says that, be careful, I'm going to ask this in the exam. So you took notes, everything. And then says, go to this website, go through those questions. I'm going to ask similar questions to that, right? Everything's teacher that did that. We are just passive learners at this moment, right? We don't change any of the questions. We don't change the lecture content or anything. Even during the test, teacher makes a test. And what's the purpose of test? Let's assume it's a multiple choice test. He asks a question. He writes 1 correct answer and 4 incorrect answers. But what is the point? The point of this test is not to trick you so that you will fail the class and the teacher is going to feel satisfied, oh, I know better than that student. But the point is, by showing false suggestions, false alternatives, you learn better. Like in the classroom, when I teach, what I do is sometimes, especially as students start sleeping, I say 2 + 2, 5. Like, I mean, not that example, but equivalent of it in our domain. I say 2 + 2, 5, right? Yes, they say. So, no, it's not. Wake up. Then they say, oh, they become vigilant. Or sometimes I show them some boundary conditions. And those boundary conditions are hard to distinguish. Is it A or is it B? But once I say that, well, you know, the 2 look similar, right? The answer is A, because then students learn where the boundary is drawn. Learning is happening by those false examples as well. The professor even prepares the question, prepares the right choice and also the wrong choice, right? And says, Isa, now you're going to choose. I did my share. Everything is there. You're not going to create anything, Isa. You're not going to come up with a 6th option. You will choose one of these 5. I already taught you what right is and what wrong would be. Now choose. Isa, being a little bit of a naughty child that day, says, A, no, B. Chooses the wrong thing. And then the teacher says, is this your answer? He accepts it. Isa just did choice. He didn't create even the outcome. Teacher listened to him. Since he chose the wrong answer, are you sure? It just makes an eye contact. Isa says, I am sure. Then says, okay, this is the outcome, -10. But generally, in our schools, if you got -10, you got -10. But the creator says, now you realize your mistake. The door for repentance is open for you. Erase your answer, reconsider your question. Now, because the point is, you learned from that mistake, right? Erase that B, I allow you to choose A again. This is repentance. If the point of life is education, it makes perfect sense to do that. Actually, lately in the education, due to this mass education, within the last 100 years, actually, the numbered system of grading is something new. And there's a new movement which is called ungrading. And the effort is that student gives you the question, let's say assignment, and teacher just goes and gives feedback to student, submits it back to the student. Student redoes the assignment, gives it back and forth. And the idea is, I'm not trying to punish you so that you get -10 and gone. I'm trying to teach you. So this is how it's happening with our creator, actually. We submit a wrong answer, and then the creator says, let's fix it, submit it back to me. The door is open for resubmission. Okay, just a second. There's an open camera. Okay, no more. Okay, so this is how the existence is taking place. So there is qadar, meaning qadar in this case is really answering our questions about order, justice, and everything. Qadar in this case means the creator has put this curriculum in front of me, hand-carved for me and everybody here in this room. And I am given this freedom of choice, but my choice is not creating. The creator is listening to my choice and sometimes creates the outcome, most of the times. Sometimes, although I would like to choose the wrong choice, creator prevents me from doing that sometimes, some of the times, right? This is an education ground. This life is an education ground. And in this school, I am expected to learn. And just to wrap up our conclusion with qadar, another verse in Quran which talks about qadar, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُمْ وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. We shall surely raise the dead to life, and we record what they did and the traces of their deeds that they have left behind. We have encompassed that in a clear book. The creator is saying that I know everything that's going on. Intentionally, I am making you go through that curriculum. But you are left free in your choices. Since the topic is not qadar, we are not going to get into the details of freedom of choice, God's knowledge, and whatnot. But in the bigger picture, as it relates to our topic of injustice, the purpose of this life is that education. And that curriculum is hand-carved for every individual. And you can also sense that you don't have anything more than choosing here. It might also partially now address, not completely, Sister Aisha's question. I am a passive learner in this life. Is it something bad? This is my reality. Like, I'm not even able to raise my hand. But with the interactions, I choose to raise my hand, and the creator, if he also chooses so, creates this action. I might choose to kill this brother. I choose, like it's one of the choices provided to me, but the creator teaches me not to do that. With my feelings, with the revelation, everything says, don't do that. But then I go ahead and choose to do it. If he also chooses so, he is the one who creates death. So at that level, it's all a learning process. But still your question is there, and it's a valid and valuable question. How do I cope with such injustices? Yes, where were we?
So now I think just to tie it back to the topic of injustice that we started with, the three kinds of injustice that we observe. So I think Brother Yusuf has basically just very decisively established that we or our choices do not create. It is the creator that creates. And then on top of that, he tells us to read in the name of the Lord that creates. So then, yes, I do observe human to human injustices. But my question is, for example, like Kadir chooses to harm me and he chooses the wrong option. The creator puts in the feelings and everything is telling him not to harm me, but he still does. That is between him and his creator. But then my question to my creator becomes, you created that outcome for me. So it's like, why would you, coming back to the initial question we started with, then why would a merciful God create this outcome for me? What am I supposed to learn out of this? So how do I read the situation that I'm being put in? So like the choice is there. Yes, someone makes the choice, but that doesn't create. So what I'm essentially trying to say is we can sum up of all the injustices that we can see, essentially becomes just one question is, why does the creator create this?
And this question was also raised in one of our discussions as, okay, let's say a bomb is thrown to Gaza. Let's use passive voice, otherwise we'll get into trouble. And like this bomb is like the burning of, let's say, a phosphorus bomb is like the burning in the flesh of an innocent is being created at that moment as well. Like the guy who wanted to throw the bomb is definitely having this ill will towards those people. That's evil from their perspective. But creator is also choosing to create that outcome too. That person's choice is evil, and that person is responsible, and that person is going to be like the justice is going to be established either in this world or the other world. I am sure about that. This we established. But Navzar is asking, how come that creator is choosing to create this apparently evil thing though? Like, because this innocent person's flesh is being burned, and then this hardship, the feeling of hardship is there, and this unpleasant discomfort is there. So wasn't this person deserving a comfortable life? This was our expectation. And this generally happens, and all those questions is arising. This is why, like when at the very early phases of the conflict that the bombs were being dropped on Gaza, I remember Zahra texting me saying that my blood is stirring. What can we do? What shall I do? Because I don't want to just stand here, stay here and do nothing, because this injustice, I am really finding it too hard to accept. What do we do with that? A beautiful example of that is provided to us in Surah Al-Kahf. Musa alayhi salam is traveling with a young lad, his student, his pupil, and I'm going to skip parts of it due to time limits. But وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ لَا أَبْرَحُ حَتَّى أَبْلُغَ مَجْمَعَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ أَوْ أَمْضِيَ حُقُبًا. So they go that journey. Moses said to his student, let's say, لِفَتَاهُ, I will not give up until I reach the junction of the two seas, or until I spend years and years in travel. This is a very beautiful story. Like, do not take it just as a historical story between two people. My creator is telling this story to me because it's relevant to me. And this is the part that I should be focusing on, okay? We are not really interested that much in what was the name of the guy who was traveling with Musa, was his name Yusha or not. These details do not really benefit us that much. So let's put it aside. If my creators tell me about this, then I need to look at it. Why is he telling this to me, right? So this is talking about a journey. Musa alayhi salam, a prophet, a teacher, is taking a journey with his student until reaching a point where junction of two seas. Does junction of two seas remind you something about the choices that I was giving as an example? A right choice and a wrong choice. Like, there is this idea of 2 + 2 is 4, like the correct answers. You know how to do summation with correct answers. But there's going to be a boundary of this knowledge where now the incorrect answers started to pop up. I mean, of course, summation is not the best example for that, but in whatever topic you study, there's going to be a right boundary from after where wrong starts kicking in. Musa is saying that in my journey of whatever topic he was interested in, and today we are having a journey about injustice. This is our journey together for the past more than an hour. in that journey, let's say we are going together with all of you. And we are saying that I will go in that journey until I find the boundary or the junction of two seas where the right and wrong is going to get together or touch each other, but never gets mixed, as another verse in Quran mentions, right? In Surah Rahman. So the verses continue, but then I'm skipping now to verse 65. Like, take it as a homework if you like. Go and study this story for yourself in that context. It's a very beautiful story. فوجد عبدا من عبادنا آتيناه رحمة من عندنا وعلمناه من لدنا علما. Well, one of the verses that I skipped in there is they pass actually the boundary. They realize it later on, they come back. This is how it happens in our journey. We seek truth. Sometimes we pass the boundary of truth, step into falsehood a little bit. Then we realize we did wrong, we step back. This is how the learning happens anyways. Like there's not going to be an exception to that in your religious life, in your justice life, in whatever life. You will always, like, where's my wife? Is she here? Oh, she's not here, safe. So in the first years of marriage, what happens is, actually first few months, people test their boundaries, okay? Because this is a person, you are now sharing space together for the first time. Like everything is nice before marriage. Once the reality kicks in, you try the boundaries and she tries the boundaries. You pass towards her boundary, then a pushback comes, you step 2 steps back, so on and so forth. With this back and forth, the boundaries are established. This is social, how it happens in social life, human relationship. This is how it happens everywhere, okay? So you will go until this junction of two seas, you will pass the boundary, you will realize your mistake, you will come back. This was happening up until verse number 65. Now in 65, they find a wise person in that junction. So they found one of our servants on whom we have bestowed mercy from ourselves and whom we had taught knowledge from our own presence. So that person has a knowledge that Musa does not have. Okay? Let's follow up with the surah. قال له Musa. So Musa is now telling to this person, this wise person, and in other narrations he is named as Khidr. Quran doesn't give his name. Apparently it's not that relevant. This is why Quran is not talking about it. But let's put it a name for now as a wise man. Musa tells to this wise man, هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا? May I follow you that you may teach me something of the wisdom which you have been taught? I would like to learn the wisdom. Now we are trying to learn the wisdom behind injustices today, right? We are knocking the door of this wise man saying that, may I follow you that you may teach me something of the wisdom which you have been taught? The other one, the wise man says, قال إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا وكيف تصبر على ما لم تحيط به خبرا. The other one said, you cannot, indeed you will not be able to have patience with me. Now comes an important concept to us, patience. You will not, indeed, he is sure, you will not be able to be patient with me. And he gives a reason for that. Because how can you patiently bear with something you cannot encompass in your knowledge, right? You see this freshman who is super duper excited and thinks very high of himself or herself. And teacher says, like, let's assume this sitting in the very front row. Teacher asks something and says, teacher, like, let's go to the next topic. I don't like this topic. And teacher says, slow down, my boy. Like we'll get there. Why is this child or this student arguing against the teacher? Because doesn't see the wisdom where this fits in there. He cannot encompass the whole curriculum. And this lecture, this slide seems out of place and argues against it. So a teacher in here is saying that, how are you going to be patient with me because you cannot see the big picture? You cannot encompass the bigger picture.
And I think we also like to live in the present. Like we're very concerned with just like having everything right now. So like even in the example of the child with the candy, you know, like, yeah, when they grow up, when they have like that knowledge and that foresight, they're gonna be like, yeah, you were right. But in this moment, that is all I want. So it is hard to be patient also in these scenarios.
And there's something really interesting about the last verse, the 70th of the one that's on the screen is, which is, it says, well, if you follow me, do not ask me concerning anything until I myself mention it to you. And then that for me ties back to the learning, as life is learning that we established initially. It's like, taking your example from the classroom is, you're like, yes, I put you through this curriculum, and now I put this MCU in front of you. But right now in this moment, you have to make that choice. It's like, and don't whisper or don't expect me or like don't ask for an answer, because then that sort of defeats the purpose of your learning. So which is why in that moment, like apparently when we see this happening and the question is like, where is God or where is justice? And you're like, in this moment now, because everything has been taught, you're supposed to act out of what you have learned, or correct reading of the universe that you're supposed to have completed by now, which is why you see this apparent, like when you say why God allows this, sort of like verse 70 for me really talks to that.
And this verse 69 and 70 is describing two important attitudes. 69 is generally our attitude. It is saying that Musa is now replying after being warned that he cannot be patient. Musa replies, قال ستجدني إن شاء الله صابرا ولا أعصي لك أمرا. You shall find me, if Allah wills, patient, and I shall not disobey you in anything. This is my intention. I'm going to live through the life, and my intention is when innocent children are killed somewhere, I'm not going to disobey him. But the Creator says, I know you are going to be impatient with me. But Musa's reply here is, I'm not going to disobey you. At least I'm not going to be in isyan. Like, I know I'm not going to help myself and then just try to say something about it. But at least I'll try to put a brake on myself to step back and see what might be behind this. So this should be my personal attitude as well. Injustices will happen in this life. Apparent injustices will happen in this life. Why do I say apparent? Because for this freshman student, freshman thinks that it is unjust, unfair, nonsense to put this course in that year. But as the years progress, we'll look back and say that, oh, my Creator putting this event over there was very just, very fruitful, to the point. But if there's going to be again an if zarar is employed in that too, meaning he wronged me, this injustice stays there. We'll talk about that. At the end, we will talk about that. But when it comes to Zarar's bigger question, how come God creates this? How come the professor is putting this hard assignment in there? I will realize, once I get a more holistic perspective, I will realize its wisdom. This is why patience is being put in there, to set my expectations and also know my limits. Like, I am not all-knowing, all-wise, and I need to, because this is why I'm in the school. If I was all-knowing, all-wise, I wouldn't need to learn anything in the first place. Therefore, it's expected that I'm going to find things incomplete, because this is how learning is happening. I put it brick by brick on top of each other. Eventually, I will learn that. But being patient in learning, it's not simply be patient, we are going to do it. This is how my father used to do it, right? So I ask him to buy something and he neglects it and he says, be patient. Generally, patience could be used for covering up neglect. But this patience in here is not to cover up neglect. It's not that, oh, God is not able to handle those bad guys right now, but he's going to catch it up in 2 years. So be patient with that. This is not the point. You are in need of patience because you learn step by step. This is how learning is set up or ordained for you. And we didn't put the rest of the verses, but let's give a very quick recap of what happened for the rest of the story. Khidr goes and they embark on a ship, and those people are carrying them, offering them a service, right? Khidr goes and opens up a hole in the ship. Back in the day, in the buses, there was an interesting type of personality in Turkey. Like, they would take their small knife and they will just cut the seats of those buses. How would you respond to such a person? You would say, why are you doing that? It's public property, right? Khidr is doing something similar. He is opening up a hole in the ship. And Musa says, well, what are you doing? Like, those people are offering us a service and you are breaking their ship. Like, Musa's attitude in here is like, who is our teacher here? Musa is our teacher here. And this is an attitude that's supposed to be given. That's okay. And actually, that is correct attitude to be demonstrated there. Musa is doing this. But then Khidr says, adjusting his behavior. What did I say? You won't be patient with me. Then Musa steps back. Like, this initial reaction is correct. It should be there because as a human, I need to say that something is wrong in here. Baby is being killed. Something is wrong in here. But then Khidr will come. And in this story, Khidr is representing Qadr, because divine knowledge. Like in this story, as the surah said, we have given a special knowledge from ourselves to that person. We are not that person. Khidr is not our teacher in this case. Khidr is Musa's teacher. Musa is our teacher. Musa is saying that this is how you would behave. Quran is teaching me this is how you would behave. But by making Khidr speak, teaching us what is the Qadr perspective, looking at things from Qadr perspective. Musa is looking at it from human perspective, which is a limited perspective. But what is the purpose of the creator? What is the Qadr perspective? Khidr is going to teach us this. They get off the ship, so Khidr doesn't give him the answer. Then they go and see a young boy, and Khidr kills the boy. And he says, why did you kill him? He didn't kill anybody. Like, what sort of a punishment you are giving? Because again, our understanding of justice in this case is a punishment is being given there. But he didn't do anything wrong. Says, what did I say? You can't be patient with me. Then Musa says, okay, I'm going to be okay for the rest. Don't blame me. If I do once more, we'll call it a day. Then this time they go to a city and people don't treat them well. Yet Khidr goes and fixes a wall which is about to fall. This time Musa says, come on, like, okay, these guys don't deserve it, yet you offered them a service. We could have at least get something that we need out of that. Khidr says, then this is the end. Let me tell you what was the wisdom behind that. Then he starts explaining the wisdom behind the first event, the second event, and the third event. Let's skip this part. The point is, we are going through injustices in this life. There are being actors in place for those injustices. Sometimes the actors are being an earthquake, where we say the creator is acting. Or sometimes it's being a brother coming and wronging me, another human being wronging me, another actor. Behind all those actors, though, like if it is earthquake, the creator is directly choosing, I know. If it's an actor like a human being, like human apparent injustice to me, yes, the person is choosing to wrong me, but he doesn't have any capacity beyond choosing. Still, the creation of what seems to be wrong is being done by the creator. Now let's look at it from Qadr perspective. Let's put this human actor aside for a second. Let's talk about the Qadr perspective, which now can apply to reading what's happening in Gaza from Qadr perspective as well, which is the bigger message for ourselves. But then we are leaving human justice to the end. Inshallah, this is how we will wrap it up all together. And we have 5 minutes to wrap it up. Yes, inshallah. So looking at things from Qadr perspective means that earthquake happens, right? And there had been a big earthquake in Turkey. Earthquake looks like it's killing 100,000 people or so. But that same earthquake has a unique message for every single person affected directly, indirectly by this earthquake. So when such a thing happens, look for yourself and ask for yourself, oh my creator, I know you are an all just one, as we have discussed since the beginning. I know you love human, you love life, you have mercy, but you created this hardship in there. What shall I learn out of that? Ask that question. It's going to take time. This is why Khidr was saying that be patient. Your learning is going to take time. But be in expectation that I will receive answers. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was in expectation of receiving answers. Hence, he was given Quran. Now Quran is given there. You and I should have an expectation from Quran I'm from my creator through Quran to give me my individual answers of my hardship. If I'm standing there, not doing anything, and then say that, well, answers are not coming, who is the one to blame there? Shall I blame the creator that he's like, how dare you do this and that? Or shall I say that, well, did you start the journey with Khidr or not? Like, are you in that journey to find the truth from falsehood? If I am in the, like, this is the part that I dislike about atheist websites. Such a website generally has not the intention of learning. It's therefore to criticize. The point is not to learn. Am I taking a similar stand in this life? I just want to say that, God, come on, you could have done this. How dare you didn't do it? Or in the classroom, professor gives you an assignment and you are the lazy guy. You don't want to do the assignment. What is the easiest way? Criticize the teacher. I'm having many of such students every term. They don't want to do their job. They rather say, oh, this is too hard. Well, why are you here? You're here to learn. And this is the proper assignment for you. You're supposed to put patience and effort in learning that. If you don't want to take that, don't blame me, blame yourself. So this story is saying that start that journey with patience, because learning happens step by step. We are not in the movie Matrix. Nobody's loading us with those information all at once. So it will take time. And then I will start seeing wisdom in things. And as you age, you will realize many of the things you considered unjust, you will see how just they have been. And then you will say that for the next thing in life that comes to you, then you have this feeling of, I will see the wisdom eventually. This is not a wishful thinking. This is based on your experience and also your expectation from that school environment of this existence. But let's conclude with, how about human wronging human? And what do I do for that? Okay, this is the initial slide that we put forward. I put it there just for the summarizing. Zarar wronged me. He stole my money. What do I do? Shall I just sit there and say that, oh, it came from God and whatnot? Is that what I'm supposed to do? So Quran is providing us with how to deal with human-human relationship, but see both aspects of it. If my money is stolen, yes, Zarar did an evil choice. He was not supposed to do that. And I will try to get my right back from him if possible in this life. Why? Because as I'm a student in this life, Zarar is a student in this life too. And he has to learn what he did wrong, because he is a brother of mine no matter what in our eternal journey. And I don't want him to fail his class. Like, think about your friends in the school, right? There might be a lazy student in your classroom. You would like to go and warn the guy. If the guy is just coming and saying, oh, let's go party and whatnot. Okay, you don't want to do party. Or maybe this was happening in my undergrad. Students were so, what did I say, cutthroat, like the competition was such. They would just steal a friend's book so that he would get a bad grade and then the curve will be lower. He's going to have a higher grade. Like, I mean, this is insane. This shouldn't happen. If you're a proper student, I would go to my friend and say that, like, you got it totally wrong, man. Like, I would, if I have a mercy towards that person, at least, because he's a human being at the end of the day, this is wrong. And I would like to take my right back from him just so that he learns how to behave, how to be a student. Prophet ﷺ had this mercy. Otherwise, he would never go to Abu Jahl. Like, Abu Jahl is the person who is torturing Prophet, who is torturing the believers, yet Prophet is going and delivering him a message. Like, it could have been that after first and second encounter, he would say that, well, go and kill this infidel. This never happened. Even at the battlefield, I was listening to a Prophet's life the other day. The question was, has Prophet ever killed a human in the war? And the scholar was saying that there's only one case. And in that one case, he threw the spear, and spear injured the guy, but the guy died of those injuries. Prophet has been on those battlefields, never killed anybody. Like, killed doesn't mean that he was standing there, but taking a stand so that my point is not to kill people. My point is to save those people. Like, this is the attitude. Even that's the enemy, this is the attitude, because this is my brother. and I would like to save him. This is why Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar has been in their religion. But if he insists not to learn, then I will try to take it. So there are boundaries in that. Do I have this mercy towards that person? Or is this my attitude of inviting people or sharing the truth with them? This needs to be at the core. On top of that, but of course, I would like to take my justice with that motivation, my right back from the guy. If he insists not to learn, it comes all the way to, because within Sharia, there's also going to be the rule where it says, qisas, for example. And actually, the verse of qisas is very interesting. Somebody killed someone. What is the retribution? Killing that person. But the verse, the same qisas verse says, but if that person shows remorse, what do? Pay within the, pay a recompense. There needs to be some sort of a punishment, a monetary recompense within the earth, within the norms of that society. And forgiveness is going to kick in there. If repentance is there, because repentance means what? I chose B, which was wrong. I realized it. I am erasing it. And now I say, okay, Allah forgives you. I forgive you. But this is, again, happens if learning happens. If the learning does not happen, the person insists to become an oppressor, then you need to stop that person. So is this somewhat being an answer? What's going to be my stand towards that? Because it might be that, no, I am in there to kill this guy. End it. This should not be believers' first attitude. Believers' first attitude is educating or bringing that person to truth. Is this possible? Because in the end, I am a creation of the Creator. So we are brothers in existence. The whole existence is this is why believer wouldn't believe in survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest depicts life as a fight. But as Quran says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ, for believers are brothers, you can extend this. Believer is a brother with the universe as well. Everything in the universe is supporting each other. I drink water, that water molecule goes to the help of my eyes and hair and body and everything. What we observe in this existence is brotherhood, harmony, not fight, from a believer point of view. So this would be my stand towards injustice as a believer, to focus it around this. How do I deliver this beautiful message, which I benefit for myself from Quran to the others, even for the oppressor? But if the oppressor insists oppressing, then I need to take action. So just to wrap it up, we were initially seeing 3 types of injustices that bothers us. One was human oppression, or human being wronged by another human. Another one was human being wronged by the Creator, or existence being wronged by the Creator, like also the animals, not only the humans. And for the later 2, we said that, well, there's no injustice in there. It's just a matter of patience. You will realize that there's no injustice in there. When it comes to the first one, yes, human can wrong human, and Creator creates that outcome. When Creator creates it, he has wisdom in there. There's no injustice in that aspect. Even when Zarar steals my money, from Qadar point of view, there's going to be justice in there. But how about from point of view of Zarar? This is very human thing is happening, and this could be one way to take it. Concluding remarks.
I would just say that it is very important to firstly, look at all of this from a perspective of this life is purposeful, or the world around me is purposeful. Because if you don't have that idea, if in your head you are thinking that, God just created the world and it's just happening, like the good is happening and the bad is happening and someone is doing the bad, and God only has the role of the interferer or an arbitrator, then you would have this natural question of, well, why isn't he interfering? But when you do see the purpose behind this creation, you do see God as the creator of the good, and you see the order and the meaning in there, then you would say, okay, then that means that the bad also must be within an order. And then you start to see, and then you start to ask the question of, who my God is, what the purpose of this life is. And then you see teaching in there. And then you look to the Quran and you see the verses about patience and humility.
And in this way, Quran is really handling the issue of what is commonly known as problem of evil. So evil does not exist in the creation then. It's not evil. It's my interpretation of it. evil would only exist in Zarar's ill intention towards me, and this is what we are trying to fix. If he insists doing it, keeping it, and not learning, this is going to be a problem for him. And this is where it needs to be happening. Fixing needs to be happening.
And since we've established that my role in this is to be patient, I think it's important to clarify the difference, or at least understand what patience actually is. So like, it's easy to take it in the wrong way and say, patience is something that a person adopts when he is helpless or frail. I can't do anything anyway, so I'm being patient. That is the exact opposite of patience. Patience is supposed to be when you read the situation and you're in the name of your Lord, as we study those verses, and you're actively trying to seek meaning in what is happening and you're learning from it. So instead of being weak and like passive, as Sister Aishwarya pointed out, that actually becomes like the pinnacle of what a human being is supposed to be doing. Because in that moment, I am a student, I am reading. So patience and basically becomes, instead of being weak and helpless, like I don't know what to do, it's like I know what to do in the situation, and which is read and learn. So patience is just reading the situation in the name of your Lord is, and which is the exact opposite of being hopeless or being passive. So
Jazakumullah khairan. We are over time, so we are not taking questions. Sorry about that. So let me close the discussion and recording, and maybe inshallah we can take a few questions after that. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم من الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.